This conference is now being recorded.
Welcome to the New York State Association of School Business Officials webinar. Today's program is the New York ASBO Monthly Planner, January edition. Today's webinar is sponsored by NTS Data Services, LLC. Your moderator for today's program is Donna Clement of New York State ASBO, Director of Professional Development. Operator assistance is available at any time during this conference by pressing £0. A question and answer session will follow the presentation. You may send chat questions during the presentation using the chat window indicated by a speech bubble icon located to the right of the presentation. Please address chat questions to the Q&A group using the drop-down list located at the bottom of the chat window. I will now turn the call over to our moderator. Donna, please begin.
Hey, thank you, Michelle. And welcome to all of you who are participating in this Preparing for the Budget Vote webinar. And we also are pleased to have our sponsor, NTS Data Services, with us. And to provide information today, we have Barbara Morlock. She's the Clerk of the Board and Secretary to the Superintendent for the Brighton Central School District, and Gary Valenti, Assistant Superintendent for Administration for Brighton and past New York State ASBO President and Board member. So we're pleased to have the two of them here to provide some good information. Make sure you ask your questions, and you can do it by using the chat feature. And at the end of the webinar, or towards the last few minutes, we will also ask if anyone would like to have a phone-in question. So stay tuned, and Gary and Barbara, it's all yours.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon. Preparing for the budget vote is it really encompasses the entire process from first creating the budget, starting with your budget guidelines, right straight through to the budget vote. So that's really, it is very comprehensive, and we're going to try to touch upon many aspects through that entire process. To begin with, we're going to share an overview of the budget process with the primary focus on communicating and sharing the budget proposal, and also an overview of the duties of the board, the clerk to the board. And helping with that is Barb Morlock. Barb has been with the Brighton School District for many years. She was actually my secretary. Started here in 1988. Hard to remember that far back, but for the past few years she's been the secretary to the superintendent and board clerk, and she'll be assisting with the overview. So on page 2, the agenda generally is going to, we're going to look at three aspects in preparing for the budget vote. The technical requirements, and this is where we'll discuss the preparation of the school budget. The development process really needs to be thorough and comprehensive, as I think you well know. And it also, it really serves as the foundation for communicating the budget in preparation for the budget vote. So we'll touch upon how we go about that here anyway in Brighton, and some suggestions. And then part of the agenda will be the practical approach. And this is the entire communication process from start to finish, the use of different medium. And we have some, I think, some good examples to share that ultimately then leads up to the budget vote. And then the required mandated reporting. We'll share with you the reports that need to be filed, the time frame in which they need to be filed by, as well as the board clerk duties. This seems very simple: communication, trust, and credibility, and I'm sure it is to all of us, and we also, I'm sure, know how important this is. But we can never overstate the importance of it. Communication, that's the key, in my judgment, in the entire budget process, is how we communicate, what we communicate, and in what form we communicate. Our communication, it needs to be open and honest, regardless of how difficult the information may be or the message that we're trying to communicate during difficult times. If our communication is open and honest, we will develop that trust that we must have with the superintendent, the Board of Education, and the community. And hopefully that trust will then lead to our credibility. And our credibility is key in our position no matter what we're doing, but especially during budget time, and I think we could all appreciate that. If we're operating from a base without credibility with the superintendent, the board, and the community, or any one or two of those groups, if you will, then it really defeats the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish, and that is to communicate the budget, the aspects of the budget, what's included in the budget, and to be clear about where that budget is going to take us in that year. If we don't have credibility, the focus shifts from the aspects and components of the budget to a lot of questions about where'd you get that number, where did this come from, why is that there? So they're always questioning certain aspects of the budget rather than looking at the budget and what it could do for the students in the incoming year. So while this is so simple and straightforward, without it, we're not going to be successful in our role, especially when it comes to developing, presenting, and gaining support for the budget. This is Brighton's budget development calendar, and I'm sure that it works for us. It may not work for you. It's an example. But it really is a September right through the budget vote date in May, an entire process. So here in Brighton, we asked the board to adopt a budget calendar, which you have here, and guidelines which follow. We think it's certainly important to set out clear expectations of what needs to be done and by whom, and that's what this calendar does. We develop the first draft of the budget during November and January, once we get materials back from the department heads. In February, we typically present the preliminary budget, first draft of the budget, to the board, so it gives them plenty of opportunities to review the budget during February and March, where we have many work sessions. And then we're scheduled this year anyway with the executive budget proposal on March 30, 2010. And that leads then to the budget adoption by the board on April 30th, the required hearing that we all are familiar with, 7 to 14 days prior to the budget vote, and the statewide vote date and board elections on May 18th, unless you're a district that wishes to request a earlier vote date because of a religious holiday. That is optional, as I understand it now. There was discussion about whether it was going to be a change for all school districts in the state. But now if a district wishes to change the statewide vote date from the third Tuesday in May, it could do so because of the religious holiday concern. And then hopefully no one will need the June 15th statewide budget revote date. In terms of our guidelines on page 7, it really, the first 4 bullets are common every year guidelines because they deal with what you would expect us to have to know and do in compliance with developing the budget, meeting all the mandates, fulfilling our contractual obligations with our bargaining units, supporting programs that are relative and pertinent to our mission and vision, and looking for alternate funding sources. So those 4 are pretty common yearly type of guidelines. The next 3 are the ones that have changed over the years. In past years, we've had budget guidelines that really deal with establishing a first draft of the budget while maintaining current program and services, or that in addition to looking at some reductions that total a certain dollar amount. This past year it was $250,000. So the real specifics in the budget guidelines that deal with the development of that first budget are really dictated by the economics at the time, what's happening in the economy and where you are with your spending plan and tax increases in your community. I think it's vital that school districts have a budget guideline established by the board with whatever input they need from us, from district representatives, but up front in the budget process, specific guidelines so that there's a clear understanding of what the board is going to receive when it does receive the budget for the first time. So there's no second guessing at that point in time. It doesn't mean it can't change. It will change most likely, but at least everyone is working from the same expectation. So when we developed the guidelines for the 10-11 year budget back in September, our board realized we are in very different economic times than we have been in the past. And to them, there was a interest in looking at reductions because they didn't feel that we would be able to sustain, if you will, the level of spending and tax increases that we have had in the past. At the same token, we didn't want as an organization to have to go to the schools and leadership in the district and come up with a list of reductions that may be more than we need, and therefore we went through a process that we didn't need to, or may not be enough, and then we'd have to go back. So this coming year, the board, I think, in a very positive way, at least in terms of helping us with the process in an organized way, we're required to present to them a summary of our projected budget in January of this year, a month earlier, not the preliminary, not the first draft, but a summary of what we believe based upon what we know up to that point, what the budget is going to be, what's included in the budget, and the impact on the tax rate. At that point in time, they will then decide, based upon the economic environment, how much they think we need to look for reductions. And at the same time, they're interested in looking at new initiatives because our board is very interested in not just doing the same old thing, but looking at how can we improve on what we're doing. So in January, we'll have some other guidelines, if you will, as we continue to develop the first draft of the budget that will go to the board in February. I think this brings good focus. It doesn't waste our energy in looking for reductions that may be more than we need, and also it prevents us, hopefully, from having to go back and getting more because as things change. So whatever the guideline is, I think it's important that first, early in the process, the board establishes that guideline to give the district direction, and so that the community and staff knows what to expect when the first preliminary budget is rolled out. The document. The document is, if we go, I'm not sure, is that farther along than, I just need to do a check here for a minute, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. The budget document. This is our blueprint, the district's blueprint of the budget that's being reviewed and under consideration. So it should definitely reflect the Board of Education goals based upon the guidelines that I just mentioned, but also needs to be detailed. It really needs to have all pertinent information that's included in the budget as it's being reviewed. It's important that the information is well organized because this will give the message that you know what you're doing, it's organized, it's detailed, and it's user-friendly. It's easy to understand, and for the most part, if you look at the document, you ought to be able to understand really what is new in the budget, what is different, what is being eliminated, so that it can answer a lot of questions. It's not going to answer the real technical questions, but it really should, in terms of the board document that's used, help the board understand exactly what's included, what's not, because they're going to make some important decisions, and you want to make sure that they're well informed as to what's included in the budget, the financial implication of what's included, and also, very importantly, how those decisions are going to impact future years, not only the budget year that is under consideration, but every decision that you make for that budget year has implications for the future, the years out. And that's important for everyone involved to understand, not only on the expenditure side, but also on how you use your revenues. Page 9 is Brighton's budget summary. That it's a format that we have used here since I began several years ago, and it works for us. It may not work for you, but it works for us. This summary is very different than the ST3 format. It obviously conforms with the budget coding system, the system accounts. Everything is coded accordingly, but it's summarized differently in our budget document. And this is the summary that shows the categories, the first being general support, which includes the budget for the central offices, superintendent, business, personnel, pupil services. Operation and maintenance is the largest component here, as well as the district insurances, liability, property, and casualty insurance. Then we have BOCES category. No matter what BOCES expense we have throughout the entire ST3 format, it's included in this one category under BOCES. So it's all-inclusive. It makes it easy to reconcile BOCES bill on a monthly basis going forward and monitoring the budget. The next 4 categories, BHS through FRES, these are our school buildings. These are the school building budgets, and therefore they're things in support of their day-to-day program. Not personnel. It's for textbook supplies, materials, conference, and the like. And then the largest category, as you would expect, is personnel. Every district paid employee is included in this budget category. It's not spread out amongst many other areas. It's confined, so it's easy to reference, easy to control, and easy to monitor. And that's $30 million out of a $60 million budget, so that's half of our total expenditure plan. All benefits are included in the one category: sports, transportation, and debt service. This next slide, it gives you the, got to go back one. Thank you. This is how we have our personnel category budget. It's summarized by these types of different personnel: administration, teaching, right through operation and maintenance. Every administrator is listed under administration, the same with teaching. So if we take all of the teaching budget codes in the ST3, they're all aligned on one page. There may be only 7 or 8 of them. And then behind that page is a complete listing of all teachers, both alpha and by program. So our teaching budget is about $20 million for teaching only. It doesn't include all the other extras. I could look at a summary that shows where we are at any point in time during the year and compare that $20 million budget with our actual costs based upon expense to date and encumbrances. So I can monitor a third of our budget in 2 seconds by knowing how much surplus or deficit we have in our overall teaching budget. And that's the same with all of these different personnel categories. So it just gives you an idea of how our budget is organized and maintained, and how helpful it is, at least to me, in monitoring the budget during the year. So it's used not only to help explain the budget, what's included, who's included, but it also is a good tool to monitor it throughout the year. Budget presentations, as I mentioned in the calendar, our budget calendar, we do an awful lot in presenting the budget. We have at least 5 budgeted workshops with the Board of Education. These are structured based upon areas of the budget. We'll do personnel and benefits together. We'll do school building budgets together. We'll do revenue and tax rate as a separate budget presentation. So they're broken down by categories that seem to fit to help the board and the community understand what is included in the budget that's under review. All of these budget workshops are televised live on Cable 12, so you don't have to be at a board meeting to understand or to listen or to know what's being discussed relative to budget. If you're interested, you can watch it on Cable 12. It's not only live, but we also repeat the board meetings over time as well. So if you missed it, you always have an opportunity to see it at some point in time. We also reach out to our service organizations in terms of trying to make sure that they're well informed as to what's included in the budget and what the expenditure plan is for the coming year and the implication that that budget plan has for future years. So we meet with Kiwanis, we meet with the Chamber of Commerce. It could either be a luncheon or one of their dinner meetings. They invite us in, and we have the opportunity to share with them the overall budget and be able to answer any questions that they may have. We reach out to our community groups, our senior citizens at our Senior Citizen Center here in Brighton at one of our schools where they meet regularly. We go to one of their meetings at noon, and we present to them the budget. And I'll get into shortly the different types of presentations, because what you don't want to do is have the same presentation for everyone or every group, because you need to know your audience, and every group is different. So, for instance, with the senior citizens, we really take 10 minutes. We don't give them a lot of information. We give them a very brief highlight and overview. Another community group is our community leaders. We have a community leaders breakfast twice a year. The community leaders compose of the heads of our PTSA, the neighborhood association presidents, the religious leaders, and the town board representatives, along with the town supervisor. We invite them in twice a year. The second meeting is to review budget. We give them an overview of the budget, help them understand what's included, and answer any questions they have, and hopefully they'll be ambassadors for the budget going forward. We also present the budget to our PTSA, Parent Teacher Student Association. They have a central PTSA, and they also have a PTSA in each building. So we do the one group, the head of the PTSA for K-12, and then we go to each school building, and the PTSA helps organize a meeting for us to present our school budget and answer any questions that the members of each of the schools may have. And we also do that with our staff. We used to present the budget at a faculty meeting at each of our schools, and we decided that we didn't want to take up that valuable time during a faculty meeting. So we schedule a time, and we invite all staff, anyone interested in learning about the budget, to come to that meeting, and we share out with them a budget presentation as well to help them understand what's included and what isn't, and the highlights of the budget. Now we get into the mandated reporting and filing requirements, and I think that most of you are familiar with these requirements, but we need to have the budget statement and required attachments must be available at least 7 days prior to the budget hearing and 14 days prior to the budget vote. In our case, we use the actual budget document that we work with the board on, that they have as part of the process, and then we enclose the attachments, the required attachments, the salary disclosure, the report cards, and information on special education. And then the property tax report card is a requirement that needs to be submitted to the newspapers and SED by the next day following the budget adoption, but no later than 24 days prior to the budget vote. I believe this year that'll be April 24th, unless you're one of those districts that wishes to change the budget vote from the third week in May. We also had the school district budget notice that is due no later than 7 days prior to the vote, prior to the budget hearing. We mail this notice to the community as part of our budget newsletter, and included in the budget notice is the contingency budget calculations that we all are required to do. We also have to calculate the STAR exemption impact, and that's included in our district budget newsletter. The administration salary disclosure that I mentioned, that's part of the budget document, has to be submitted to SED no later than 7 days prior to the budget hearing, and it obviously is available upon request. We have that budget document in every school building, central office, and the library for anyone that's interested. It's available for them at all those locations. And then, of course, the three-part budget information that's presented at the annual public hearing, and it's also included in the budget newsletter. Communications. This is now where we have to follow up in communicating the budget proposal and to try to have an informed community. Certainly the budget, the communication needs to be clear. It needs to be understandable. It needs to be factual. We need to know that the communications should be able for somebody to walk away knowing what are the major cost drivers, why is the budget going up X percent, what are some of the reductions, if any, how have the major expenditure areas changed from year to year. Those are, I think, what people want to know. What's the impact on program? What's the overall cost? And how does it affect our tax rate? You need to know your audience, and I touched upon this briefly before when I was discussing or mentioned the presentation to the senior citizens. You don't use, or you may want to consider not using the same type of budget presentation to all of your audiences because they are different. We use, for Kiwanis, the community groups chamber, we go through the entire budget, executive budget proposal that we've done with the board. We think it's important for them to know that. With our senior citizens, we don't. That's the shortest. That's really 10 minutes, quick, highlights, answer any questions. And then anywhere in between. With our school building staff, we don't go through the entire budget because they're familiar with the district for the most part. So we do more of a highlights, if you will. So it's really important to know your audience and to tailor the budget presentation based upon the audience and what you think they need to know. It's also extremely important that we be honest, and this is the credibility piece again, with the information that we're sharing. And in some cases, it's not always good news. But regardless, it's important that you share the information, even if they don't want to hear it or it's not the news that you would want to present. But if it's part of the budget, if it's reality, then you must be open and full disclosure regarding it. So if you are over budget in one area, say special education this year, so next year it needs to increase more than you would have thought because you were under budget the prior year and those costs are still escalating, you need to be honest about that. There's nothing wrong with that. That happens. It's a complex system. Kids may move into the district, so you weren't anticipating all of those move-ins and the variety of costs that are associated with it. So you need to present the information fully and honestly, and even with contract negotiations and the impact it has on budget. If you don't want to say it in public, then we probably shouldn't have agreed to those contract terms. So you need to make sure that the audience knows exactly what's driving the budget, whether it's good news or bad news, and then they need to make an informed decision. And of course, we all know that we cannot tell our voters to vote yes on the budget. I'm a little perplexed by this. I'm not sure I understand why we're not allowed to, but certainly that's the regulation. The PTSA could tell our community to vote yes. The teachers' unions could and all other unions can tell the voters to vote yes, but the school district can only inform the public, and you have to be very careful on crossing that line, if you will, from informing them as opposed to encouraging them to vote yes. We can encourage them to vote, but not vote yes. We have a budget information committee, which I think is critical in getting out the word and communicating our budget. And we don't want to confuse this with a budget advisory committee. This is very different. The purpose of our Budget Information Committee is to review and implement the budget communication process. It does not deal with assisting with developing the budget, what's included in the budget, or dealing with any aspects of the entire budget process. This is for information and communication only. We have had budget advisory committees in the past. I know several districts that have them and still do have them. We found that it wasn't very productive for us, so that we stopped using it. But we have found that this information committee structure has been helpful in communicating and getting the word out to a vast array of audiences. So the membership of the committee includes our communication coordinator, who's the chair. We have Board of Education members on the committee, superintendent, administrators, myself, and other administrators. We have PTSA representatives and union representatives. And I should note that's not listed here. We have alumni representatives. We have a very active alumni association that is extremely supportive of our school district, and there is a member of the alumni association on this committee, as well as a student representative. The superintendent, his responsibilities as it's related and coordinated with the information committee activities, makes the budget presentations, as I mentioned previously. He does write a column on the budget for our local newspapers, and there's a link on our website with budget information for anyone that's on our website to be able to go and look at the budget. He will meet with our local reporters, any community groups, and service organizations, as I mentioned before, Kiwanis and Rotary. Community groups could be community organizations with our neighborhood organizations that may be interested. We'll go and speak with them. He also creates a public service announcement that runs on Channel 12 and is a link on our website. This is about an 8-minute or so clip on the budget. It's really, again, the purpose of this medium is to just give some general information, some quick information that's available in a different type of medium, so that it's out there if somebody's interested. It's repeated, if you will, on Channel 12, so it's not a one-time. The responsibilities of our administrators relative to budget and communicating the budget, they will include budget information in their building newsletters and also in their e-news. Whomever signs up for building information can do it through e-news, and it's a nice, efficient way of communicating for that individual or individuals to learn about school information at their leisure. Our high school principal also sends a letter to our high school graduates over the past 2 years. It's a very brief letter. It simply indicates to them the fact that the budget vote's coming up, when the budget vote, the voting is, and encourages them to vote as well. And our social studies teachers discuss the budget in their classroom, and they discuss the eligibility, who is eligible to vote. Because that leads us to students that are age eligible to vote. We encourage them to do so, at least inform them about the process, about the budget, and the principal sends a letter to those students that are eligible to vote at the high school. And our elementary school principal sends a letter to our preschool parents to help start to inform them about the school district and about the budget, because they're going to want to be more involved as their children participate in the school district. So those are things that our administrators do in helping to get information out on the budget. Our PTSA plays a major role as well in communicating the budget. First, they endorse the budget. Then they have in the past, they'll mail a postcard reminding all of our parents to vote, and there's a sample of that postcard shortly that I'll share with you. They plan a board candidate night where the candidates that are running for a board seat, they'll have a question and answer period for those board candidates. And part of that evening is an overview of the budget, so we're reaching another type of audience, and that is also live on Cable 12. And the PTSA also sends an email voting reminders to friends, family, and neighbors, and I'll have a sample of that coming up shortly so that you'll see what that includes. Our union presidents are helpful as well in communicating the budget. They send a letter to all district residents that are union members, not just Brighton School District union members, but union members that live in Brighton that may work in other school districts in the county, and they get that list from NYSET, so they know who those individuals are. So they're communicating to all teacher union members, whether they're Brighton faculty or not, but live in a district and are eligible to vote. And they also mail vote reminders to all of our retirees that are still residents in the district. So it's another way of reaching out and preparing for the budget vote to inform residents about the budget and when it is that they should vote. Our communications coordinator, who I mentioned, is the chair of this Budget Information Committee, and she assists all those members with those duties that I mentioned. In addition, she prepares a multi-page newsletter on the budget that has a lot of information, and I'll follow up again momentarily on the budget newsletter with some more information. But she also does a Fact a Day, which is what we call Fact a Day, and again, there's some examples of this, and they're listed on Cable 12 on a repeating basis. The morning shows, we have morning shows both at our high school and middle school, and the students announce that Fact a Day each morning in their buildings, and that Fact a Day is also listed on our website. Our communications coordinator also utilizes our e-news and district website in sharing information out to the community with e-news a week before the vote, as well as the website 2 weeks for the vote. And then she provides information and responds, obviously, to the media with any questions they may have, and arranges to update and post our vote banners, and I'll share those with you in a moment as well. This is the information from the PTSA once the executive board endorses the budget. This is what the PTSA sends to every parent in the district, indicating that they've endorsed the budget and the propositions, and reminding the parents to vote on May 15th this past year. Or this is an old one, but it's the same concept. They do this on a yearly basis. These are stickers that the PTSA uses. We help them prepare them, but what they do is they provide them to our K-5 student population. The yellow sticker, the one on top, is sent out with the students. It's sent home with each student in grades K-5 1 week before the vote. So it's a reminder that it's time to vote, in this case on May 19th. The bottom sticker, if it's orange or burnt orange, whatever color, red that they may be, that sticker is sent home with each student in grades K-5 on the day of the vote. So it's another reminder to parents through the PTSA when to vote on the school budget. This is a banner that's posted at our main intersection, 12 Corners in Brighton. It's the major intersection in our Brighton School District. It's a big banner that's posted on the front lawn of our 12 Corners Middle School, and it indicates the vote date, location, and time. So anyone driving through that intersection is going to know that there's a school budget vote, in this case on May 19th. This banner is posted about 10 days before the vote, so it's not there for a real long period of time where people are not going to really see it because it's always there, but hopefully it's there soon enough for them to know, if they don't in any other way, realize that there's a school budget vote coming up on May 19th. This sign is on a sandwich board. It's a poster that indicates, again, the vote date and the time and the location and the voting qualifications for individuals that are eligible to vote. This sandwich board, if you will, we probably have about a half dozen of them, and they're posted throughout the community in neighborhoods where they may either request them or we think it's a good location to, again, remind our community about the upcoming school budget vote. This is the notice that's sent home, that's posted on our website. It's by e-news to individuals. It's a reminder from the PTSA as well as the district about the budget vote. It's again, on the website. It's another way of having information available based upon how people like to gather information regarding our budget. So it's another way of trying to inform the public about the vote. You can't read this budget news, but and you don't need to, but what's important for you to know is this is the first page of our multi-page budget newsletter. This is the first year that we have included this information, the proposed budget for the current year, on the first page of our budget newsletter. This is the actual first page of our budget newsletter. Past budget newsletters on the first page has always been a letter from the Board of Education. A community resident shared with us that it's a large document, has a lot of information, and people's lives are so busy, parents are so busy, that they very well may not even open up the budget newsletter. So, and if they don't, they're not going to know the basic facts that they need to know about the budget. The total budget that they're voting on, the increase, who's running for the board, what propositions there are. We thought that was a good suggestion, so we modified the format and we included the real basic information about the budget vote, that a community resident should know or needs to know before voting, and whether or not they open up the budget newsletter or not, at least they have this information right there for them on page 1. And I think it was a great suggestion, and it helps communicate more efficiently, if you will, to our residents, especially if they don't want to take the time to get to the more detail, which is included in the 12-page document. This is another example of information that's either on e-news or our website. Again, it has just the basic information about the vote. And we're just reaching out to try to get the community involvement in voting. And hopefully during that process they're getting whatever information they need so that they're making an informed decision when they do vote. These are the facts of a day that I had mentioned previously, budget facts. They're on the Cable 12. They're on our website on a daily basis. And as I mentioned, the students share these during the morning show of in each of their schools, the high school and the middle school. And you could see from the different dates that the varied information. It deals with, obviously, the budget and the tax rate. It deals with student achievement. It deals with our capital funds. We have 2 different capital funds, a capital for our facilities, and we have a technology reserve capital fund. So it speaks to the history about how we've invested those funds over time and about the services and programs for the budget. So these are very, as you can see, quick information, short clips about the budget that is done on a daily basis. And here are, on page 30, are some additional budget facts that are posted. It also shows how we compare in our true value tax rate, what our cost per pupil is, and how we compare with our neighboring school districts in Monroe County. So it's a good way, in a different way, again, of getting the information out in preparing ultimately for that budget vote. And now I'm going to turn it over to Barb Morlock, and she's going to discuss the duties of the board clerk.
Good afternoon. The first thing that I would need to do in the budget process as the clerk would be to send a letter to our local Board of Elections requesting the use of the voting machines. As simple as this may seem, it is important. Obviously, they need to know when we're going to get them, how many we need, etc. And normally our Buildings and Grounds Department will pick them up, and then they will also take them back the day after the budget vote. In March, we begin to prepare our legal notices. We are required to publish our budget vote 4 times. The first publication being at least 45 days prior to the vote, and we publish in 2 publications here in Brighton. Both one is a local newspaper and one is a paper that reaches more of Monroe County. They are 2 publications that we've approved at our organizational meeting in July. The second publication we send out in the middle of April, the third in late April, and the fourth in the beginning of May. Also in March, we prepare the nominating petitions and campaign expense forms for the candidates. A candidate is required to get signatures on a petition. They either have to have 25 signatures or 2% of the total votes in the previous year's vote, whichever number is greater, and all their signatures obviously have to be eligible voters in the Brighton School District, meaning 18 years of age or older, living within the school district, and a citizen of the United States. The petitions are due to me no later than 30 days prior to the vote. And then once the board candidates have decided they are going to run, they are required to complete expense forms. Whether they spend any money or not, they are still required to complete the form, turn them in to me again at least 30 days prior to the vote, on or before the 5th day prior to the vote, and within 20 days after the vote. In April, I send a letter to the Monroe County Board of Elections asking for the voter registration records of those who have been considered permanently disabled. These are often elderly, people who cannot get out of their homes to come and vote, people who are in nursing homes. We have probably 350 permanently disabled voters here in the Brighton School District. They are sent an absentee ballot by which they are allowed to vote. They are not required, we're not required to send them an application for an absentee ballot. The fact that they are listed on the Monroe County registration as a permanently disabled voter serves as their application for an absentee ballot. Also in April, the PTSA here in Brighton gets our volunteers to act as election inspectors. We then confirm who the election inspectors will be in April, and we take them to the board for approval at our business meeting at the beginning of April as well. All of our election inspectors here are parent volunteers. They do a great job for us here in Brighton, and it works very well for us. So, again, in April, our propositions are included on the ballot. Any propositions included on our ballot are due to me at least 30 days prior to the vote. Also in April, I will determine, the Board of Education members who are running for the board will come in and draw what order they will be listed on the ballot. If a Board of Education member is not present for the drawing, I will draw in their absence. I then certify who is going to be listed on the ballot, in what order, and that's how they appear in the voting machines. Then the Board of Education in April votes to adopt the budget at least 7 days prior to the budget vote. And as Gary said, our budget information is made available to our public. Anyone here can come into any of our buildings and look at it. It's available to them. It has to be available to them at least 14 days prior to the vote. It's frequently available to them prior to that. People at that time request absentee ballots either via letter or a phone call, and then they are sent an application which they complete, and then they are sent an absentee ballot explaining why they're not able to attend the budget vote. They are due to me no later than 5 o'clock the day of the budget vote. Paper ballots are prepared in April and taken to the actual budget vote. For those who we have a question on their eligibility to vote, for example, if they don't have a driver's license with them, if their driver's license does not show a current address, we have them fill out a paper ballot, and it is counted separately but also included in the total budget vote. The budget newsletter that Gary showed you is mailed in April to all of our residents in the community. We mail out over 10,000 budget newsletters. I'm not quite sure about prepare the copies of the budget. Okay, again, the budget is available for the public. Again, at the library, for the Board of Education, the staff members. Gary, the superintendent, gives many budget presentations, like he said, to our community members, our senior citizens, our community leaders, our religious leaders, our staff members, etc. Then I send out a memo to Gary, our Buildings and Grounds Director, our Communications Coordinator, etc., for things that will be needed at the day of the budget vote. Things like sandwich boards, just the small things that may not seem important but are as the actual day goes on. And about a week before the budget vote, the voting machine inserts are prepared and sent to the Monroe County Board of Elections so that their people can actually put them in the voting machines so that they're ready the day of the vote. And the day of the vote, we post distant markers 100 feet from the polling places. We post several posters of the sample ballot so that when people come into the room, which is often full of people, they have an opportunity to look at the propositions, to look at the members of the board who are running, and to look at the budget figure to determine how they would like to vote once they do get into the voting machine. At the beginning of the morning when I arrive, we check all the machines to make sure that the counters are at 0. When the polls close, we record the voting results, including all the absentee ballots and the paper ballots, and then we notify the media of the results of the vote, and also we notify the successful and not successful people who are running for the board seats. Also in May, but after the vote, the minutes of the annual election and vote are recorded and taken to the board for approval. The day after the vote, the BOCES superintendent is notified of the results, and an important step to send thank you letters to all the volunteers who have worked at the election.
Thank you, Barb. That completes the formal presentation on preparing for the budget vote. So I guess, Donna, we're interested if there are any questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who would like to ask an audio question, please press the number 7 pound on your telephone now, and you'll be placed in the queue in the order received. Again, 7 pound to ask an audio question, or continue to send chat questions via the chat function located at the right-hand side of your screen.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And we do have 2 questions, and one is from Beth Gillette, and she's asking, is there any update on the use or timeline for new voting machines?
Sure. I'll ask Barb to respond if she does even know.
I don't know about an update. I know there has been talk that they are going to be requiring them this May for the use of the budget votes, but I have not heard anything certain as of yet.
I think that's also the second question that's listed here as well.
Yes. Are we going to be using, Robert Meza says, are we going to be using the new voting machines this year? I haven't heard anything or seen anything about it either. So we'll have to look into that. Okay. Well, I was wondering, I have a few comments here. When you go to the service organizations and the community groups, who actually does the speaking?
It's the superintendent and myself. The superintendent will generally do an introduction, and then I'll present the budget specifics. And what we use in those 2 settings, we actually use the executive budget proposal that has all the pertinent facts regarding the budget proposal, but it also has comparable information, how we compare to our counterparts in the county relative to tax rate increases over time, the average cost per pupil, and the true value tax rate. And how we spend our reserves and what the proposals are for spending the following year out of each of our capital and tech reserves. So it's kind of a shared participation between the superintendent and myself.
Okay. And, I didn't know whether there were community members who also got involved with that talk or not.
No, not in those 2 forms. There are not. Generally, though, in most other cases, we have Board of Education members there that are, we have very active board members, very supportive board members, and especially at the PTSA meetings that we present budget there's always a couple of members there. They very much, several of them go to the meeting with our senior citizens. I call it a meeting. It's a 10-minute time period, but it's important. They're nice people. They're supportive, and we try to make sure that they're informed as well.
Well, it's interesting. Many times the perception is that the senior citizens are the ones who vote down budgets, but that's not necessarily true.
There's no evidence of that in Brighton, and I'm not. I can't speak to other districts, but that certainly is not the case here.
Mm-hmm. Also, I was wondering, how much notice, Barbara, do you give before you need the voting machines?
I normally request the voting machines in February.
Oh, okay. So that's quite a bit of notice.
Right. Yeah. Want to make sure we get the good ones.
Right. And
it's very important to, sorry, Donna, but it's very important to read the propositions that are going to be printed in the voting machines and make sure that they're correct, because that could create an issue if it's not presented correctly.
Yes.
I don't want to underscore the point of the importance of making sure that the data in the machines is what it should be.
Well, wasn't there a Rochester district that had a difficulty like that last year?
Yes, there was. There was a little oversight, and they had to have a revote.
Yeah, and those revotes can be expensive too.
Yes, and it's confusing to the public. And
yeah. Now, who notifies the board members who win or lose? Do you have any? I know some boards they have it planned out because of various feelings of people, or even as a consideration to someone who particularly has been on the board for a long time.
Well, since I've been the clerk, Donna, the board members who have been running have been there at the end of the budget vote, and they've run unopposed. We did have one other non-incumbent who ran 1 year, and he didn't win, and we let him know, but the 2 board members that were running were actually there at the end of the budget vote, so they knew right then that night.
Oh,
Usually they're at the budget vote, so the communication is when the results are made public.
Right.
Okay.
I think the point you're making is that the organization needs to have a way or a vehicle of communicating to the candidates if they're not there and they don't know whether they were either elected or not elected, because I think that's an important follow-up on a district's part. And I say district, it probably is a board education responsibility, and specifically probably the board president at the time.
Yes. And I know many times in discussions with boards of education and those presidents and vice presidents, that has been a discussion as to if so-and-so wins, well, then this is the person who calls if they're not there. And if so-and-so loses, well, then this is the person that will call them. And it helps with building that team right from the beginning.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, right, with that vote. Any other points that while we're waiting for questions, you certainly are able to ask some questions, and we will try and get that information about the new voting machines. And also you can call in just by hitting 7# if you'd like. Any other points that are coming to mind now that we've gone through this information?
None that come to mind. I know it really scanned a whole gamut because, as we had said right up front, preparing for the budget vote isn't just one activity or one snapshot in time. It really is a year-long process. And that year-long process is really contingent upon the credibility that you have with the major players in the organization. That's where you keep the focus on what it should be, and that is the implication of the budget, the impact on program for students, and the implication of that budget in future years. So if I had to stress anything, I would certainly stress that again.
Yeah. I like your communications committee. I think that's certainly something that's probably extremely helpful in getting the word out.
That is. There's as you I think could see, there's an awful lot of work that is being done, but it's being done by a lot of different people. So no one is really doing more than they should, if you will. But it really is trying to inform the community. And we thought we were doing that when we had a budget advisory committee, but that really didn't work. That really involved a small group of community residents, so we really weren't communicating the budget as much as we wanted to or should have by way of the budget advisory committee, and that's why we discontinued that practice and moved more toward the information committee.
And I also like how you have students on it.
We try to involve high school students in a lot of our district activities. They're very helpful. They have a morning show, as I mentioned, both at the middle school and high school, where they share a fact a day when those are available through our communications coordinator. We use students on interview committees for principals, for superintendents, and they're a delight to have. I mean, they're super. They're great ambassadors for the school district.
I also like your alumni committee too. I think that's certainly a good idea.
Yes, they have become very active over the past 3 years. They have made donations to the school district for us to do some things that we wouldn't have been able to do through our operating budget. And they're just a great supportive group of people that really care about Brighton and want to continue the type of district that it was when they went to school.
Do you have many alumni who attend school out of the county who asks for absentee ballots?
We have a small amount of college students who do. We have several college students who are home when the budget vote takes place, but we do have some alumni who do ask for absentee ballots, yes.
Yeah,
not a huge number, but we do have some.
Because they can also vote in the location of where they do attend college. So they have a choice on where they want to cast that vote.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I
but
didn't know that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know that some school districts look to the colleges. Now, I think that's correct. That was the assumption that I had. If anyone has any different information, certainly you can let us know. Well, Michelle, there are no questions coming in?
Currently no questions on the audio queue.
Yes. So I think you did a good job. You must have answered everyone's questions.
Well, let's
Okay.
hope that's the case and not
Yes.
what otherwise could have happened.
Yes. No, I think you provided a lot of good information, some insight, and it's very interesting how so much of this information that you covered, every school district needs to do, but everyone does it just a little differently.
Absolutely.
And it's nice to see those other touches that people can use.
I'm always interested in the budget document from other districts to see what they're doing and see if it makes sense for us to incorporate some of their ideas. So it's always good to look for other examples.
Mm-hmm. Well, since we have no other questions, I guess we will say thank you. Thank you very much, Barbara and Gary, for the information that you've provided, and certainly thank you to NTS Data Services for sponsoring this webinar, and to all of you. We do have our last webinar of this year, of 2009, and it is on Wednesday, December 16, and it's dealing with the supervisory services and talking about really how to supervise that support staff that you have. And if you haven't signed up for that, well, we certainly look forward to you participating in it if you are so inclined. Otherwise, certainly happy holidays to all of you, and talk to you next year.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's New York State ASBO Monthly Planner webinar. Thank you to the sponsor of today's webinar, NTS Data Services. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.